Got a little rock and roll coming your way. Rock and roll, baby. Let's go ahead and cut the music and get right to the show. Welcome back. What's up, good people? Coming back at you with the McCarty Show, live in action from Ground Zero here. This is the base of operations during the coronavirus. Let me turn this off, power down, rocking out. Me and my man Ronald Acuna Jr., Braves superstar. He's going to be helping me get this show on the road today. So, what do we need to talk about? You know it, Republicans and Democrats and elephants and donkeys and that kind of stuff. We're going to pick it up right here with all you slaps out in slap world yearning for the learning. I'm about to bring it to you right here. What I want to talk about today, two things. Number one, something you've probably already been exposed to. I know we've talked a lot about it. The other thing, maybe not, maybe so. So the first thing is, as we begin to talk more about Republicans and Democrats and mainstream parties, let's start to try to distinguish the two major parties in the United States, and let's talk about how they take a different approach to the idea of individual liberty. So what I'm going to start talking about here first is going to get back to like your core values and how we talked about that a little bit yesterday. So as you listen to what I'm saying, think about what are your core values and what do you think is right and not wrong. All right, so let's talk about individual liberty and freedom and the principles based in the Constitution. Both major parties, all people are going to say that they stand for individual liberty, freedom, whatever. But the major parties take different approaches as to what that looks like. Let's start on the left. So you got the Democratic Party. Their whole approach in terms of, limited government and individual freedom really shows up with their social agenda. The left is very closely associated with strong support for the LGBT community. They fight for the women's rights. They fought for making same-sex marriage legal in all 50 states. They are closely associated with all those movements. They're more associated with allowing recreational marijuana to be legalized in all 50 states. They're more closely associated with maybe getting people out of jail that have those minor drug offenses. They're more closely associated with women's rights to privacy, specifically abortion and that kind of stuff. So all of these ideas and movements are on the left, or at least they're more closely associated with the left. And so this is where your Democratic Party will talk about, we believe in individual freedom and individual liberty. And it's in that social arena. Not to say that Republicans don't believe in individual liberty. They just have a little bit different way of looking at, well, what does liberty mean to us? And for example, some of those issues that I just pointed out, like abortion and support for the LGBT community and those types of things, conservatives or the Republican Party is less associated with a lot of really open support for those different types of movements. Not to say that Republicans don't support people within those areas. I don't think you would find a mainstream Republican that would say, oh, I don't support anyone in the LGBT community and I don't support same-sex couples. But over the last couple of decades at least, the Republican mainstream party has been more conservative, we'll use that buzzword, in their values. So that's how the left talks about individual liberty. It comes out a lot in their social agenda. Now on the right, the Republican Party is constantly claiming to be, we're the party of limited government, we're the party of individual liberty and freedom. But they really view their limited government stuff on the economic side. So your Republican Party is going to be your party of no welfare, lower taxation, don't tax the rich. That they're viewing these things as sort of breaching, or not breaching, but taking away my liberty. Like if I'm asked to pay tax dollars that go to support someone else who has equal opportunity to me, then I feel like that's an encroachment on my liberty. And so they really view this economic side of things in terms of belief in the free market. They view that as liberty and limited government, and that's where they spend a lot of their time focusing on their policy agenda. We want to make sure that we support the free market and we let private individuals and private businesses so that producers and consumers can work and operate and the market works as it should. And a lot of conservatives would argue that market economics or capitalism, that's the best way to obtain liberty, or that's the best form of liberty to have in your society. And on that issue, libertarians, which are not liberals, those two words, remember, are not the same thing. Libertarians would fall in the sort of Republican Party camp on that. So social issues with your Democrats, that's your limited government. With your economic, we'll call it fiscal policy issues, that's where your Republicans really fall under the limited government. So now let's do this, kind of in the same conversation. Let's talk about something you may not have been as exposed to, and it's the difference between the economic policies of the left and right. So this is one of the number one issues that divide Republicans and Democrats, if in fact it's the number one issue. Aside from abortion, same-sex marriage, legalizing recreational marijuana, whatever. Aside from like immigration, not all of that stuff. Let's talk about the real fundamental core value difference between Republicans and Democrats, and it's rooted in their economic theory. So since we were talking about Republicans and market capitalism and limited government in that way, let's get right on that. For your right-wing conservative fiscal conservative Republicans, they're going to believe in market capitalism and a hands-off approach to the economy. They believe, when I say, the market, that means producers and consumers and companies, that they can all interact without the government just fine and produce things for people, produce goods and services at an affordable rate and of a high quality, and the consumers will have choices and they can pick and choose, and the market will be just fine without the government. That's your conservative Republican Party outlook on how we should run the economy. When it comes to spurring economic growth, like right now, let's say we're in an economic downturn because of the coronavirus, Republicans, and I'm going to time out for a second because what we're seeing with the stimulus package is different. We're going to talk about that later, but let's just talk about traditional. Republicans are more likely to talk about, you'll hear this in the news referred to a lot of times as supply side economics or trickle down economics. That's just kind of the media buzzwords for what Republicans and conservatives typically push for. And when we're talking about an economic like downturn or a recession, Republicans will want to use those types of policies to create growth in the economy or to encourage growth. Now, what are those policies? So supply side or trickle down economics or trickle down theory is the idea that you can grow the economy by stimulating supply. Supply, if you've taken an economics course, is the producer side of the economy, not the consumer side. So we're talking about the businesses that are producing goods and services. Supply side economics theory says we need to have things like tax cuts and incentives for corporations and businesses, or small businesses, large businesses alike. Let's take it easy on those people, because they are the ones hiring the workers that are producing the goods and services. They're the ones that are paying the wages of workers so that the workers can have an income. One of the reasons the economy is in a recession right now is because people are getting laid off. So the conservative Republican says it's more consistent with liberty to give some slack to the business side of it. Give them tax breaks, lower the tax rates for corporations, bail out, whatever. Let's let those people, succeed. And when businesses succeed, America succeeds, because they hire more people. Those people are paying taxes, they're supporting their families, et cetera, et cetera. So the theory is you give the businesses some help at the top, and then maybe that prosperity will trickle down into the economy at large. You've helped your recession or downturn. Okay, so in a nutshell, on the flip side, your Democrats say that's booty, because the help that you give at the top doesn't just trickle down into the economy, because at the top, they take that help, they take those tax cuts, and they don't use it for the benefit of the economy. It goes into their pockets. And the liberal Democrats are like, that's not consistent with liberty, because you're just helping some and not all. So your Democrats are more likely to support, I'll just kind of blanket term it, we'll call it Keynesian economics, named after the famous economist John Maynard Keynes, Keynes, Keynes. It looks like key, like you unlock a door, and then Nes, but it's pronounced Keynes. It looks like Keynesian economics on paper. You can look it up, John Maynard Keynes. He's writing a lot of stuff during the Great Depression era, and his whole thing is, how can we never have a Great Depression again? And he's one of the most famous economists of all time. And we still use his stuff today. So what is his stuff? What does he come up with? And what are the liberal Democrats, thinking about it? So Republicans have this supply side approach. Democrats have this demand side approach, which is where Keynes comes in. Keynes says you can help the economy by giving people money, not businesses at the top, but your consumers. Give them money, and what will they do with the money? They will spend it, and they'll buy things from the store, and they'll do things with that money, and through stimulating demand for goods and services, you will grow the economy. Because as businesses start getting income from these consumers, they'll go, wow, we've got the money to start hiring workers, and we push the economy forward through the demand side. That's Keynesian economics. The hold up on that is, where does the money come from that we give people? Taxes. Keynes says the government can use tax money to give out to the people when they need it. If they have to go, they being the government here, if the government has to go in debt in order to do this, that's okay. So this national debt that we see today of like $22 trillion is in many ways resulting from this idea from Keynes that we can create debt with government to give money where it's needed. And the long-term effect is that you're going to help your economy. People say, well, what about the government going into debt? Like in the long run, that's going to be a problem. And he said, well, in the long run, we'll be dead, bro. So whatever, which is true. He's dead now and we have a lot of debt. But both approaches are good for stimulating economic growth. I mean, they're both putting money into the economy. They're just doing it in two different ways. You see your Republicans are saying the way that the Democrats and Keynes want to do it is not consistent with liberty, because in order to give that money, they're having to take that money from someone, which is not cool. The Republicans are saying we can put money into the economy by letting people have more of their money. Let businesses keep their money, and they will use that extra income to encourage growth within their business, to open up new restaurants, whatever. Democrats say it just doesn't work that way. You're helping out the smallest percentage. And what about the people at the bottom that will never see that economic prosperity trickle down? So two different approaches on how to grow the economy. Both are rooted in pretty sound economic theory. Keynes would be one of your most famous economists of that side. Obviously, it's named after him. And then on the fiscal conservative side, this is where Ronald Reagan comes in. He's one of the first, or probably the first American president to start implementing these types of policies. Reaganomics sometimes is what it was referred to. But you've got people like Milton Friedman, who you've probably heard me talk about before. He's a big sort of conservative economist. Friedrich von Hayek, Ludwig von Mises. These are all people you can look up. On the left, in the Keynes camp, you've got more Paul Krugman type people. Names that you'll never need to know, except if you're bored and you're a nerd and you just want to Google people's names. Anyways, so there's a little bit more about Republicans and Democrats and how they feel about the economy. Now, with this stimulus check thing, really weird. Why? Republicans are the ones that pushed it. Republicans, led by a Republican president, pushed this give everybody a check. That's Keynesian demand side economics. That's not Republican mainstream economic thinking. But we're in a time of crisis, and I'm not going to give you a lot of my opinion as to why I think they did it, but it's a little odd because typically your Republicans are the ones saying, don't spend too much money, the government is in debt. Under the Obama administration, it was all like, oh no, we're in so much debt. But now it's like we've just doubled the amount of money that the government is going to owe this fiscal year in one swoop of a pen. So we're in very interesting times here, people. Very interesting indeed. If I'm talking too fast, it's because I've had too much caffeine. You'll live. So I'm going to leave you there, though. I want to leave you to think about your core values. Which one of those two economic theories sounds better to you? Which one do you like more and why? Whatever questions you have, I spoke really fast. Ask me your questions. Don't submit slap questions. I need good, substantive questions so that I can respond to them tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have some discussion about some of the intellectual things that you have to say about this video. If not, I'll feel like I'm wasting my time and I'll get real butthurt and real salty, and I don't want to do that. So, I'm 3 minutes over. With that, I'll let you go. I'm going to continue rocking out on the electric guitar, and let me know if you have questions. I hope you enjoyed this one. Peace out.